Welcome to Thinking Deeper by 6-7.
Today involves a sledgehammer, a dead rock, and a river. It's going to be pretty intense.
Intense is one word for it. We're diving into a perspective today that takes, a massive swing at some of the oldest pillars of human society. We're looking at source material that claims God is essentially a psychological crutch, that organized religion is nothing more than a dead rock, and this is the kicker, that the devil has actually been far more active in human history than the creator.
It's a very provocative stance, to say the least. It's essentially a worldview that is atheistic when it comes to a personal God, the old man in the clouds. Yet it's also deeply, almost wildly religious about life itself.
It separates the institution from the experience.
Exactly. It separates religion from religiousness.
Right. And we're working with excerpts from Osho today. And look, regardless of what you think of the man himself, the philosophical arguments here are just razor sharp. He makes this distinction right away.
And that distinction is really the mission of this deep dive, isn't it? Our goal is to unpack why the source argues that you have to kill the concepts of both God and the devil to maybe find true human freedom.
Before we really get into that,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you don't miss out on future dives like this one. If you like my channel, please subscribe and press the like button.
Okay, so let's start with that core metaphor you mentioned, the rock versus the river.
Yeah, the source material uses this imagery that, it really stuck with me. Osho compares organized religion to a rock.
A dead rock.
A dead rock, yeah, just sitting in the middle of a stream. It might be ancient, it could be impressive, maybe it's been there for 2,000 years, but it's dead. It doesn't move, it doesn't, change with the seasons.
It just sits there, obstructing the flow.
Exactly. And in contrast, he describes religiousness, what he calls true spirituality, as the river itself.
It flows, it changes course, it adapts, but it always reaches the ocean. It's alive precisely because it's not static.
And he points out that there's something like, 300 religions in the world?
300. And he does not mince words. He calls them organized crime.
That is a heavy, heavy label.
It is. But if you follow his logic, he sees them as crowds. And, crowds tend to destroy individuality. They just fill your head with prepared answers. Heaven, hell, reincarnation.
Hallucinations, he calls them.
He does. He says they dig a grave for your actual living experience. It's like if you're constantly looking at a map someone else drew, you never actually look at the ground you're walking on.
That's a great way to put it. So, okay, if that's religion, how does he define religiousness? Because if you strip away the church, the mosque, the temple, what's actually left?
And that's the key shift. He says true religiousness isn't a belief system. You don't sign up for it. It's a quality of the heart.
Like what?
Gratitude, silence, love. The source explicitly says true religiousness needs no scriptures, no prophets, and certainly no popes.
Because life is flux, right? The text uses this beautiful image of autumn leaves falling. They just fall silently to make way for the new leaves. Life is constant change.
But religions try to freeze truth. And the moment you freeze it, well, according to this view, you kill it. You turn a river into a block of ice.
And that leads us, I think, directly to the biggest target in the source material.
Concept of God itself.
This is where the atheistic element really comes into play. Let's unpack this, because this is where the source gets really psychological.
It does. Osho argues that God isn't an objective reality, not like a tree or a mountain. God is a hypothesis.
A hypothesis born out of fear.
Right. The argument is that humans feel small. The universe is vast, it's cold, it seems totally indifferent. So, to feel safe, we invent a father figure.
We need to feel like someone is watching out for us, someone who cares if we get that promotion or if our team wins the game.
It's the teddy bear argument.
Wow.
The source actually compares the concept of God to a child's teddy bear. It brings comfort in the dark, and no one denies the comfort, but it's still a fiction.
And to be truly mature, you have to outgrow the teddy bear. You have to accept that existence might be indifferent to you, and then find your own footing in that freedom.
But here's where it gets really interesting and kind of darkly funny. The source uses modern corporate terms to distinguish between God and the devil.
Oh, yeah. God is a VIP, a very important person.
Right, the guy in the corner office.
But the devil.
Yeah.
The devil is a VVIP, a very, very important person.
And the logic is, well, it's hard to argue with if you just look at history.
Exactly. The source says, look at the Genesis story. God created the world in 6 days, and then what?
He clocked out.
He's been on holiday ever since.
He's totally absent.
But the devil is working overtime. The source lists these figures, Genghis Khan, Hitler, Stalin, even modern corrupt politicians. He argues that these are the representatives of the devil, the active force of politics, of violence, of control.
So while God is silent, the devil is running the show.
And this connects to a really profound philosophical point in the text. It's deeper than just a joke. The source argues that God and the devil are a married couple.
They're codependent. You can't have one without the other.
Because it's a binary system, isn't it?
It is. If you invent the good creator, you automatically imply the bad destroyer. You can't have a coin with only one side. And this is where the source critiques Nietzsche.
Right. Nietzsche famously said, God is dead.
The headline for atheism. But Osho argues Nietzsche made a mistake, a huge one. He forgot to kill the devil.
Oh.
And as long as the devil, which really just represents fear and politics and evil, as long as that exists in the human mind, the shadow of God remains, you haven't actually cleared the board.
So the goal is to kill both.
Metaphorically, yeah. The
Yeah.
source says, I am saying God is dead, the devil is dead. It's about clearing the board of all external authorities, good and bad.
And what's left when you clear that board, if there's no puppet master?
Human dignity. That's the crux of it. The argument is that as long as you worship a creator, you're just a made object. You're a puppet.
A product.
Exactly. But if you remove the creator, you're not a puppet anymore. You become responsible for yourself. You regain your dignity.
That's a huge shift. It moves the center of control from up there to, well, in here. But let's look at the mechanism of that control. If there's no God and no devil, how do these institutions keep people in line? The source has a very specific idea about this.
The tar in the cleaner.
Yes. This is a brilliant, if cynical analogy for how priesthoods operate.
It really is.
So the story goes like this. You're two business partners. One man goes through town in the dead of night, throwing tar on everyone's windows, just making a huge black mess.
Creating the problem.
Exactly. Then, in the morning, the second partner comes strolling through town shouting, I clean tar, I clean tar.
And everyone rushes to pay him to clean their windows.
And the source says, this is the priesthood. This is organized religion.
They throw the tar, which is guilt. They tell you that your natural instincts are sins, especially sex, food, joy, the good stuff. They make you feel dirty just for being a human being.
And once you feel dirty.
They sell you the cleaning fluid, confession, prayer, rituals, donations. They create the disease of guilt, and then they sell you the cure of salvation. It's a closed commercial loop.
And notice what the tar is made of. The source really emphasizes that they specifically target natural joys. Why?
Because if people are happy here and now, if they're actually enjoying life, they don't need some paradise after death. You only buy a ticket to the afterlife if your current life is miserable.
Misery is the marketplace for religion. That's the claim.
And this leads to a very controversial point in the text about sexuality and health.
Yeah, this part was striking. The source explicitly links the repression of natural instincts to perversion. He argues that by forcing unnatural celibacy, religions just drive that energy into unnatural channels.
The text even goes so far as to blame religious repression for the spread of things like AIDS. Now, to be clear, he's not speaking as a virologist. He's speaking as a psychologist.
Right.
The argument is that when you block a natural river, it floods and creates swamps. If you forbid natural sexuality, that energy doesn't just disappear, it becomes distorted.
It's the idea that you can't fight nature. You can't legislate against biology without some kind of consequence.
And the source suggests this is why dead saints are preferred over living ones. A dead saint can't mess up. A dead saint is predictable.
A dead saint is a statue. You can project whatever you want onto them, but a living master might, tell a joke or contradict themselves or just act human.
And that destroys the illusion of perfection that the dogma requires.
Speaking of illusions, we have to talk about the Tolstoy story mentioned in the source. This is my favorite part of the whole text. It's all about the difference between official prayer and, well, true prayer.
The story of the three hermits. It illustrates the point perfectly.
Right. So there's an archbishop on a ship, and he stops at this remote island. And there are three simple, uneducated men living there. They don't know any scripture, nothing.
And the archbishop asks them, so how do you pray?
And they say, well, we're pretty simple guys. We know there are three of us, and we heard God is a Trinity, so we just say, you are three, we are three, have mercy on us.
Which theologically is just a disaster.
The archbishop is horrified. He's like, no, that's not how you do it. So he spends the whole day teaching them the official, long, complicated prayer. He drills it into them.
Right. He's satisfied he saved them, so he gets back on a ship and sails away.
But then, out in the middle of the ocean, he sees something coming after the ship. A light on the water. It gets closer and closer.
And it's the three hermits.
They are running on top of the water.
Defying the laws of physics.
They catch up to the ship, totally out of breath, and they shout up, "Please, sir, we forgot the prayer. We remember the first part, but not the middle. Can you teach us again?"
And the archbishop, seeing these men walking on water is something he, with all his rank and knowledge, could never do. He's just humbled. He realizes their connection is real. His is just words.
So he tells them, "Forget my prayer. Go back and pray your own way." It's such a powerful image. It just dismantles the idea that you need a specific code to connect with existence.
It completely redefines prayer. The source argues true prayer isn't a complaint box. It's not about asking for things, because asking for things kind of implies that God got it wrong.
Yeah, dear God, please fix my bank account. Like, you know better.
Exactly. The source says true prayer is just gratitude. It's acknowledging your breath, your heartbeat, the green of the trees. It's a silent thank you for the fact that you exist at all.
There's a quick mention of Yuri Gagarin in there, too, the cosmonaut.
Oh, right. When he went to space, he saw the Earth without borders. No nations, no divisions, just one single existence. That, the source says, is the religious perspective, seeing the oneness.
So that brings us to the ultimate goal. If we strip away the God figure, the devil figure, the guilt, the formal prayers, what are we left with? What's the ideal human state?
He calls it Zorba the Buddha.
I love this concept. It's such a perfect synthesis.
It really is.
So for anyone who doesn't know, Zorba comes from the novel Zorba the Greek. He represents the earth. He drinks, he dances, he loves, he enjoys the physical world completely. He is the body.
And Buddha, of course, represents the soul. Silence, meditation, consciousness, the sky.
And historically, we've been forced to choose, right? You're either a hedonist or you're a monk, materialist or spiritual.
But Osho says that's a false choice. He argues you shouldn't choose. You should be both. You should be Zorba and the Buddha.
He argues that if you really live the life of Zorba fully, if you experience the world, you naturally start asking, is that all there is? And that question leads you to the Buddha. But you can't just skip the foundation.
Right, you can't build the roof before the house is built. And this leads to his view on enlightenment. We're taught to think of enlightenment as this impossibly hard mountain to climb.
For the chosen few.
But the source says that's just a trick.
It is. Religions make it seem hard to keep your ego engaged. The ego loves a challenge. I am going to achieve the impossible.
But the source claims enlightenment is actually the easiest thing in the world. It's just relaxing into your own nature.
He uses that analogy of the dog chasing its tail.
Yes, it's a sunny morning, the dog sees its tail and thinks it's something to catch. It jumps, the tail jumps. The harder it tries,
the faster the tail moves away. Because the tail is already part of the dog.
Exactly. Enlightenment is your tail. You don't need to catch it, you just need to realize it's already there. You just have to stop spinning.
So what does this all mean for us? Let's try to summarize this whole deep dive.
I think we've explored a perspective that is, incredibly destructive to tradition, but maybe constructive for the individual. The mission is to replace the fiction of a personal God and the politics of organized religion with something else.
A personal, conscious, celebratory religiousness.
Right. It's a shift from believing, which is blind, to knowing, which is based on your own experience, moving from the fear of hell to the joy of this moment.
And it challenges you, the listener, to throw away the crutches. If you don't have a God to blame or a devil to fear, you're just left with yourself. And that can be terrifying, but it's the only place where true freedom can start.
Before we wrap up, there was one final thought from the source that was, well, it was pretty logistical for a spiritual discussion.
Oh, yes. This is a great thought to leave with.
It's about the last judgment. We're told to wait for this big day when everyone will be judged, but the source just points out the sheer logistical nightmare of it. Well, think about it. Billions and billions of people from all of history, all rising from their graves at once. The source jokes that the noise, the confusion, everyone looking for their spouses and the chaos, it would be impossible to judge anyone.
It would be a bureaucracy of cosmic proportions.
Exactly. And the point is, it will never happen. So instead of waiting for a judgment that isn't coming, the challenge is to turn this life into the paradise you've been looking for.
Don't wait for the afterlife. Build the paradise here.
And question your chains. Even if those chains are covered in flowers, even if they're comfortable, they're still chains.
That is a lot to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a pleasure.
We'll see you next time. Keep thinking deeper.